Okay, so repetition is one of my favorite things in the whole entire world because at some point I start to pick something up. So we're going to go through this again. I was also going to have us sing a children's song together, but we already did that. Okay? One of the things that I love about preaching and that also scares me about preaching is looking at a selection of texts and deciding which one I want to talk about. And usually it takes a lot of prayer and a lot of concentration, and I look some things up and stuff. Not with this one. I saw the story that was in Luke 19 about Zacchaeus, and it brought all those memories back to me of growing up in church and singing the very song that we did. And I was going to ask y'all who had sung that as a young person growing up in the church, but I could tell by how many of you were singing that you did. But I need to see hands. How many of you, right? Okay. And I'll tell you what, I practiced, because if I was going to have to lead us in singing that song, I practiced the song, which, Jocelyn, is the only reason that I was really sure that I had all the words, okay? That is a core memory for me as a child, is singing this song about Zacchaeus. For so many reasons, some of them as simple as I have always been short, okay? There was a short person in this song who had this great experience with Jesus. Even as a 6-year-old, I knew that everyone was taller than me, okay? And I remember feeling that special connection. But what I really want to, and I thought, you know what, I want to look at this again. One of the things I've been able to do that has been a huge blessing for me, being able to preach here and being given that gift by you all of letting me use my gift, is that I've gone back through passages that I thought that I knew, and I have found new and exciting and wonderful things as an adult in some things that I used to think of in only the terms of a children's song. And so what I want to talk about today is what I see, and it started out as a progression for me in this story. And I am going to call it a story because I'm an English teacher, and we look at things like stories. And I think this little section works especially well as a story. Okay, and so in this story, we start out with this idea of a search, okay? And then we move into a section that has something to do with grace, and it does a couple of different things, I think. And then we have a response, okay, to this grace, all right, that has happened, or something is given, all right? And then, but this is the part that got me as an adult, that search starts over at the end. But it starts over in a different way. So I want to go ahead and look through the passage, and again, we have repetition, all right? We've heard this read in a beautiful child's voice. I need just recordings of our children reading scripture to play to myself when I am unhappy, because they just make me so happy. But I want to go through this again, and I've kind of done the thing I always do, all right, that helps my brain stay focused, and that is used some color. So we have the parts that are searching, okay, have something to do with search in blue, grace in yellow, and then the response in green, all right? Okay, Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through it. A man was there named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd, he could not, because he was short in stature. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree to see him, because he was going to pass that way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today." So he hurried down and was happy to welcome him. All who saw it began to grumble and said, "He was gone to be the guest of one who is a sinner." Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, "Look, half of my possessions, Lord, I will give to the poor. And if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will pay back 4 times as much." Then Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because he too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek out and to save the lost." So my English teacher brain went a little crazy, And I decided to, when we're talking about this as a story, I want to go through, all right, and talk about the elements of this as a story. So you have characters. So you have a chief tax collector, and I highlighted chief, and we've already talked about that. So this is the tax collector of tax collectors. So he is like the sinner of the sinners. Okay, so there's kind of a level here where, I mean, we're getting way up at the top of the sinner ladder, okay, here, right, with the chief tax collector. And as we mentioned before, tax collectors, the way they made their money at this time was to defraud the people that they took taxes from. So whatever they could get above the amount of tax that was due, all right, they got to keep. So there was all sorts of shenanigans happening. I couldn't help but think of like mafia dons and stuff like that when I was reading this. Okay, so this is a man who is in control of other men, so his capos, below him, and they are all doing the same thing. Okay, so this is some real sinning we have going on here. And then we have a sycamore tree. I love that it tells you it is a sycamore tree, and I did not have time to look into that. But I think that's probably an important point. All right. Maybe it was easy for us short people to like get to the bottom branches and then get up a little bit. Okay. I don't know. I think it's interesting that we get to know which kind of tree it is. There are some grumblers because there are always grumblers. Okay. And the grumblers are just as important to this story as some of the other characters. And then you have Jesus of Nazareth. And I specifically chose to identify him as from Nazareth, which means he wasn't from Jericho. Does that make sense? Like, we're coming from a different place here. He lives somewhere else. All right. Okay, the setting is Jericho. It's during Jesus' final journey to Jerusalem. He's getting ready to he's getting much, much, much closer to the cross. And so I think what's being said in here and what happens, the action that happens in here, is really important because Jesus is coming close to the end of his ministry. And then we have conflict. And the conflict is where the searching starts. All right, the searching stage of this story. So I decided to I guess, describe the conflict as curiosity clashing with stature, wrapped in social, religious, economic, anything you want to, conflict here. Because there is all sorts of conflict happening. People from different towns, people of different heritages, all right? People of different social status, all right? You have all of this coming together that is part of the culture at the time. And then you have the rising action, okay? Any of you, are you flashing back to high school English and having a hard moment? I apologize. It's just, I can speak on behalf of all English teachers. It is part of our DNA at this point. Okay, so I'm sharing it with you. All right. So rising action, you've got this handy tree, right? He runs. So Zacchaeus runs, which I also think is important. He's not walking or trying to get through the crowd. He is running so that he can get ahead of the crowd, get somewhere high so that he can see Jesus. All right. So you have the tree, and then Jesus looks up. Okay, so all of the action is building up to this point where Jesus looks up. All right? Okay, and then you have the pinnacle or the climax of the action. And this is where the grace, the salvation, the being chosen happens. All right, and I think it's important because later in the response, there's some action happening, but the salvation, the being chosen, the grace happens before Zacchaeus shows the fruits of this conversion by saying, I will do these things. All right. Every single thing I read in preparation for today made it really like the salvation happened before the giving, like the giving of the things and the turning around of his life happened as a result of this grace salvation step. Okay. So, and it's also interesting right here at the very point of all of the action of this story, Jesus says, I'm coming to your house. Like he invites himself over. Did y'all ever think about that before? I thought that was really interesting. He didn't say, hey, is it okay if I come to my house? He said, hurry. I am coming to your house. Okay. Talk about being chosen. And when I sang this, and I was in the back singing with y'all and doing the hand motions, okay, this was my favorite part, is when Jesus says, Zacchaeus, you come down from there, for I'm going to your house today. I'm going to your house today. And we always shook our finger at that part, okay? Shook our finger. You come down from there, because I'm going to your house today. I pick you. And you know what? Okay, here's another thing as an adult that I think about. This crowd, they probably all wanted to be picked as well, because at this point, Jesus is really popular. Okay, he's very important. Everybody's curious about him. And so everybody is interested. And then he picks this guy, this short little, cheater dude. Okay, he picks this guy, right? Okay, so, and then the falling action, I think, which is the part that comes down, where you hit the peak of the story, and then you kind of have what comes after. And this is where you have some sort of a response, okay? And in this case, it's Zacchaeus' response to say, I'm going to fix things now that I have seen that I have worth, now that you have chosen me. But here's what got me this time when I was going through this as an adult. And it seems so obvious, but at the same time, I had never thought about it like this. The search starts back over at the bottom and is going to go back through that cycle again in the second, what did I call it? The second search comes back after that. Okay, so in this initial search, we have Zacchaeus, who's the chief tax collector. He's an extortioner. I don't even know if that's a word. I tried to look it up, but okay, he extorts people. That's probably better. Extortionist. There it is. I could not think of that, so I just put, a noun up there. All right. What? Okay. So who? Now, what I'm doing right here are the who, what, when, where, why, how questions, right? Journalist questions. All right. Again, something that is very good if you want to try to dig into a story. So the who is Zacchaeus. So what? What is he doing, right? What does he want? He wants to see, and I put that word in quotation marks, and I did not have time to track down Dr. Weeb and say, what is this word, okay, in Greek, and what is going on with this word? I did not have time to do that. So I wanted to know what this means. He wants to see him. Okay, I get that. But what does that mean? Does he want to view him, evaluate him, understand him? He wants something, okay? And the word that's here, that's in our translation, is see. He wants to see him with his eyes, I think, physically, but he also wants to see what he's about. He wants to see if he is the Messiah, as people are saying, to see if he is this powerful, to see what he's going to do if he sees Zacchaeus. All right? So when does he want to do this seeing? He wants to do it now, right? Jesus is there. This is the time. He wants to do it now. He wants to grasp the opportunity. There's an immediacy in this story that I don't think I picked up on as a child, all right? There's a real immediacy. Why does he want to do all this? He's looking for grace. He's looking for salvation. He is looking for something, all right? And it's something that he thinks Jesus might be able to give him. And how? How is he going to do it, right? How is he going to do this seeing? By any means necessary. If it means running really fast and finding some place to climb up on to see this person, he is going to do it by any means necessary. And then his response is the restitution that he makes. All right, once he has had this encounter with Jesus, Jesus has accepted him to the point that Jesus says, I'm going to come to your house. I'm going to eat there with you at your table, which was a much bigger deal, all right, in the frame of this story and in the time frame than it was for us today. It was a big, big, big deal to sit down at a table and eat a meal with someone. All right, so the restitution comes as this response. But then, as I'm studying all of this, I'm thinking, you know what, there is something else. And the something else is this other search that's going on. And in this one, It's Jesus who's doing the searching, the Messiah, the Son of God. All right? Jesus himself is doing some searching, and I don't know why. It really never struck me that he might be searching for Zacchaeus. And what is he doing? All right? He wants to accept, forgive, save Zacchaeus. He specifically points him out by name, which makes me think, did he know him previously? Right? How does he know Zacchaeus' name? He does in the story. For whatever reason, he knows and calls him by name, and I would imagine that was pretty surprising. All right? Zacchaeus hasn't met this man, but he knows his name, and he calls him by name. All right? And then when, again, just like Zacchaeus, now Jesus says, hurry. Okay? I really like that part. It's like, let's go. Get down here right now. Okay? You see that same grasping of an opportunity, the same immediacy that Jesus is showing in his searching. All right? Where are they? They're in a crowd. He's looking for this man who is a loathed figure. All right? He is a feared sinner. All right? That is where Zacchaeus is. He is in this crowd. Okay? He gets up in a tree. He's part of this huge thing. And then Jesus seeks him out of that crowd. All right? Why? Here with Jesus' search, with this other secondary search that I think is going on, Jesus wants to bestow the grace that Zacchaeus is looking for. He wants to bestow the grace, bestow the salvation. He wants to give that to him. And he seeks him out. Jesus seeks him out to give him that. All right? I think it's really interesting that, and part of where I'm backing this up with like Jesus seeking him out, I mean, he obviously points at, chooses him, is, we're going to get to that in just a second. But how? Again, by any means necessary. I'm going to pick you out of a crowd and I'm going to go to your house. Now get down here and let's go. Okay? I wonder if Jesus had a mom voice. If he did, that's when he would use it. Okay? All right. So I want to read through this again, and I want you to think about this idea of seeking and finding something and responding to it, and then seeking again. Or think about it for seeking from the outside. I always thought about this from Zacchaeus' viewpoint. Okay? Zacchaeus is seeking, but Jesus also is seeking. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through it. A man was there named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd, he could not because he was short in stature. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree to see him because he was going to pass that way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today. So he hurried down and was happy to welcome him. All who saw it began to grumble and said he was gone to be the guest of one who is a sinner. Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, Look, half of my possessions, Lord, I will give to the poor. And if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will pay back 4 times as much, which, by the way, was more than was even required by law at that time. Then Jesus said to him, Today salvation has come to this house, because he, too, is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek out and to save the lost. This last, this version, I worked on this, and then it disappeared, and then I had to do it again. And so I've skipped a few things, but this last, starting with "For the Son of Man came to seek out and to save the lost," is verse 10. And it was described by more than one commentator that I saw as being the key to this passage and really to the book of Luke. All right, is this one passage. For the Son of Man came to seek, to do his own search, okay, like we see here, and to save the lost. So as an adult looking at this again, it sort of boiled down to this for me. Zacchaeus was searching for Jesus, but Jesus was also searching for him. And in the same way, Jesus also searches for us. He searches to give us salvation and hope and grace. But also he searches for us to be in a relationship with him. So Zacchaeus was searching for Jesus, but Jesus was also searching for him. And Jesus is still and always will be searching for us. Would you pray with me, please? Father, you are glorious and you are great and you are strong and you are on our side. We are so thankful to be your children, to be in company with you, Father. We are so pleased to walk with you. And Father, sometimes we forget and we get buried under our own lives and buried under our responsibilities, and we forget, God, that you are there with your hand out saying, I want to be with you. Let me come sit beside you today. Father, thank you for your Son. May we go from here knowing the peace that comes from having a relationship with you. It's through your Son's name that I pray.